always during this period of the year, it's it's an ever changing
Yeah.
landscape and stuff like that. I mean, everything, there's variant BA, BC, B10,
Totally,
B9.
totally, yeah. And I think for us, so we found out the exact same time that news story went live. So we had no prior warning. So we found out literally when all that stuff broke. So yeah, it was not a fun day. What I think was tremendous is within 5 minutes of that, the New York City Department of Health, CDC, on the phone with us, talking through everything, contact tracing, all that stuff. And like it was remarkable to work with them, how professional and prompt they were through all of this. And like looking at it, like I think we were in the news as we were one of the first cases of Omicron, and I think it's also not to diminish the seriousness of COVID. It was an easy story to write. Nerd con super spreader, like that's a very easy
Right.
thing. Like I've been trying to get into the New York Times for 5 years. Finally, I got my New York Times story, not necessarily the one I wanted. Fauci knows who I am. That's cool. But the end result of all that is that looking at after the CDC did everything, like they did thorough reports and like they came out early in the year that we weren't a super spreader event. The number of COVID cases that came out of Anime NYC were in line with New York at large, and especially Omicron. And most of those cases came from fans that also went to karaoke, went to bars, that kind of stuff. Like we had proof of vaccination and we had face coverings inside the venue. So like it's actually been stated like we were a gold standard for how to mitigate COVID at a large event. That being said, all that was after the fact, and those Comic-Con super spreader stories are still gonna be out there for a few years. For us though, like we do take this very seriously. And we do know that COVID is still a thing. People still get sick from this. People still die from this. And as we look to Anime NYC this year, we are very clear that we are keeping our COVID policies in place. If anything, have only heightened them from last year. So beyond everything with last year, have a much broader, bigger COVID check procedure than we had last time out. Because I think our single biggest challenge last year was the amount of time on Friday it took for people to go through that test or go through the checkpoint. We're using the exact same process that Madison Square Garden uses. After last year's show, we spoke to a number of very large venues around New York for what they do, and amazed by how transparent a lot of large stadiums were with their procedures. So we're using the MSG model to mitigate all that wait times. So we want to keep our audience healthy and safe. While a lot of large events have dropped most or all of their COVID policies, we are certainly keeping ours in place. And I think the harsh reality though is also just we're still in a COVID world, and simply leaving your house, I mean, you've got risk of exposure. So we're doing everything we can, but it continues to be an interesting and new wrinkle into doing any sort of public event.
And what I kind of remember the most about last year is that I think the majority of people were still very much so masked up, and it kind of felt like we want to preserve this because this is our first like major for me, for at least for me, this was my first major event kind of like going out, you know what I'm saying? Like not that, 2020, 2021, like other than maybe going to like the one time the Knicks were in the playoffs. Um Other than going to that, this was kind of like my first major thing, and I kind of wanted not only but keep myself safe, but it kind of
Yeah.
felt like everybody as a community. And I think that's what's the most important part about it. It's like I think as a community we value this event so much that we don't. I'm sure no one wanted anything of the sort to kind of happen like that. So I think with that and the mask policies and everything like that, I think it came out for like I felt pretty good stepping in the building all 3 days because I was
Oh,
there all 3 days.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, we were
Absolutely.
there
Like,
all 3 days, and I felt pretty damn good about it.
absolutely. Like, again, it was, I think, an easy story to write, but like, I think we were very confident in the actual policies last year, and exceptionally confident in what we're doing for this year. And I think like you hit on the power of anime cons. Like even before COVID, we're all nerds. We are, you know, we've all probably had, not the best high school experiences, and like, we're always looking for our tribe and our people, and to have a space where everyone there gets the same jokes that you do, likes the same stuff that you do, like that's a that's a legit community. That's something that we don't always have. And there is such a feeling of home with any event like this, as these are your people. And that's always been true. And I feel, especially now where we are in this, late COVID world, is especially true. Like for Anime NYC last year, for a lot of fans, that was their first time they went out in a year or two. This is the first time you might be seeing your friends again. Like it was a very special moment, and I think looking at any anime con since then as well, like that is still there, up there, to just bubbling up. Is this is still special, and I think all of us recognize more than we used to just how important those physical communities are. You know, whether it's an anime show or you mentioned like the Nets, like go into the Nets, go into a game is very different than watching it on your couch, or go into a concert, very different than watching a thumbnail on YouTube. Like there's just something that I think just is just innate with us as a species, where we want to come together, and I don't think we all recognize just how deep seated that is until COVID took that away.